So this here is the new Zwift Click, something that is finally priced reasonably, if not I dare say cheap, compared to all the other things that'll be announced next week and this past week and over the next few weeks. This is just 49 bucks, not only for these two things here, but also for the Zwift Cog as well as the free hub depending on your particular trainer. That is crazy pants reasonable. Now, I'm gonna dive into what this is, how it works, and all that kind of goodness. This will not be a complex video. This is not a complex thing. The first thing to know though is it's called the Zwift Click. It says it right there on the side of the box. The old Zwift Click was a single button with 2 clicks. And when I called it the Zwift Clicks, they got upset and said, hey Ray, it's actually a Zwift Click. Now, I would point out this time, there's 2 of them. Why is it still called a Click? There's 2 clicks, and there's a lot of clickers inside of it. I would argue this should be called the clicks, but you know, it is what it is. Now, inside this box, you're gonna find a couple things you see on the screen right there. You're gonna find your clicks, and you're gonna find the bands. These 4 bands, you're probably gonna hate them as much as I do. This is my real only complaint about this, but don't worry, it's easily solvable. Those bands allow you to mount it in a bunch of different ways. Just to kind of show you some of those ways here on some of the bikes that I've got. In the case of the road bike side, you can mount it on the top of your bars if you want to. Not my favorite position because it's just not really where I wanna be. You can mount it closer to the shifters, either on the inside or on the outside. In my case, I prefer on the inside of the shifters. That's just where my big old floppy hands seem to fit and where I can use my thumbs to kind of go down and press the buttons. Next, if you have a triathlon bike, you can mount it on the aero bars, as you see right there. If you got a mountain bike, here's an example where you would mount that there. I'm too lazy to mount my mountain bike up right now on the trainer. But of course, at the end of the day, you can mount these wherever you darn well want with these bands. But let's talk about these bands for a second. And hey, just a quick note, if you're finding this video interesting and useful, just simply watch it all the way through. That's the only thing YouTube cares about these days, and it really does help with this video and the channel quite a bit. So the way these things work is there's basically 2 different ends to it. There's the end that's closest there, that side's good. And then there's this other end with a floppy bit. As you see when I put it on, you have the floppy bit that basically hangs off the side. So then you have to take the floppy bit and wrap it back under this little notch right there and get it into that. Which isn't like technically hard in the grand scheme of bike things to do, but it's annoying. And more importantly, it's annoying for something you have to do every time you take your bike on and off the trainer, like to go for an outdoor ride, etc. if you don't have a dedicated trainer bike. I just do not understand why Zwift took these bands, which have been around for more than 15 years and like well loved by cyclists, and said, hold my beer, I can make this worse, more cumbersome, more painful, and just generally horrible. I did ask Zwift why they made them horrible, and they said they made them horrible because they wanted to ensure they wouldn't break if people kept taking them on and off over time. Do you know how many bands we could have bought for these 4 bands right here? In any case, I'll stop my rant. It's the only thing I don't like about this product, and it's easily fixed by the bands you probably already have in your house. In any case, with all of our bondage stuff complete, let's get to actually using it. Now, essentially what this does is it combines the existing Click with the existing Play controllers. These things were announced a few years back, super popular, but it takes almost all these functions, if not every single function, and pulls it into the 2 new little buttons. So the first thing you need to do is to pair it up. Now, there is a new pairing screen coming in the next few weeks here. That's not quite here today. So you got the old pairing screen with the controls menu like you see right there. By the way, these are coin cell driven. It says in the back CR 2032. Standard coin cell battery. Zwift said they should last about 100 hours from a battery life standpoint. Okay, with them all paired up, there's one more setting menu you may want to tweak. So if you go into your settings, you'll see that you can change the orientation. So if you've put them in a different direction than the stock default direction, then you might want to swap that around so things aren't backwards for you. Now, the other option there is whether or not you want to use virtual shifting. First thing to know about virtual shifting is it effectively means you do not use regular shifting on your bike. Mechanical shifting, electronic shifting doesn't happen anymore. Instead, the shifting happens internal to the trainer itself, so there's no sounds from a shift standpoint. The way you would shift would be using these little plus and minus buttons that you see right there at the top, and that just basically changes the resistance internally. It's been around in Zwift for a number of years now. Notably, you do not need the Zwift Cog that you see there to do that. The Zwift Cog is purely mechanical. There's no electronics in that thing back there. Instead, it just simply makes it easier for bikes to be in the same chain line. That is all it is. So you can use virtual shifting on any supported trainer just with an existing cassette. So just kind of keep that in mind. The whole point of the Zwift Cog is to make it so I can take a 12-speed bike, mix it with a 13-speed bike, an 11-speed, 10-speed, whatever it may be, on one single trainer. And that's what the Cog is there for. So if you want to use virtual shifting, in the menus there, you will see a virtual shifting option. There's 2 options, sequential shifting or SRAM style shifting. In the case of sequential, it's just one set of gears from 1 to 21. So 1 easiest, 21's the hardest. pretty straightforward, right? Versus SRAM style shifting, you basically simulate a front derailleur. So that means you have 2 gears up front and you switch between those 2 gears by pressing both the plus and the minus, focus, plus and the minus gear at the same time like this, and then it simulates that front gear shifting. Next up, you've got steering. With the Zwift Click, you can basically use the arrow buttons to steer left or right. Steering in Zwift works by essentially moving you left or right on your side of the lane. You still can't like go off the road or cause a crash or anything like that. None of that's changed. It's just simply bringing it to something not only more affordable, but probably a little more easy for some people to put on their bikes than these Zwift Play controllers were, which were sometimes a little tricky depending on your bike setup. But of course, one of the biggest things that people like about the Play controllers is the ability to access the action bar at the bottom there and all the things that come with it. So you can do that from your handlebars, you can pop it up, you can change your view, you can do different actions, you can drop a burrito, whatever you want to do, all that is from that bottom bar there. Likewise, you can also now navigate through the entire menu system as well. So if you have some setting you don't like, configure the way you want, you don't need to get a keyboard or mouse or other controller out, you can do it entirely from this, which is super handy. Finally, if you're in erg mode like my wife is right now, you can go ahead and just use the plus and minus to increase and decrease the bias. So that means that'll basically make it harder or easier, but still keep that same structured workout. That's effectively the exact same thing the original Zwift Click did in terms of making it harder and easier, except now you still have access to all the other menu features and whatnot from those buttons. Okay, so where are we overall? Well, first off, I'm going to give this some credit here. When it comes to hardware, they seem to like stick the landing every single time, not only on the features and functionality, but on the price. Yes, there are always things they can improve, but by and large, they nail it. And this is just another example of that. For 49 bucks, including not just these, but your entire kit of the Zwift cog and whatnot, that's awesome. The one downside is you can't buy a kit like this. This is what would come in a trainer box if you were buying a new trainer. It's this little piece here. In this piece, you can't buy, quote, at launch, as what they're saying. So hopefully down the road, but they also said that last time and it never really happened. I don't really understand Zwift's continued hesitancy to not just selling this solo cup compared to the entire cog setup and all that fun stuff. It just seems like that's a lot of extra work and shipping, weight, and all the kind of fun stuff for no obvious reason. I think people have been happy to buy just this for 49 bucks, but you know, I won't give them too many ideas. Anyways, that's all I've got. There's a ton more sports tech stuff coming up over the next couple weeks here. Cycling, running, you name it, all the things, all the categories I cover, every single one of them is going to have good stuff, so you do not want to miss out on that. With that, have a good one.